It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's our goal. Hey, it's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. I am Tom Papa. Thank you for joining us today. It's time for a little day drinking. It's time for a little day drinking with the Sklars. Jason and Randy Sklar, very funny comedians. They've been on the show before, and they come back because they have a new show called The Nosebleeds. The Nosebleeds. You can check it out on YouTube. You can go to the Sklars something or other. On Instagram? Thank you, Aaron. You can see them on YouTube and Instagram. The Nosebleeds with the Sklar brothers. They do a funny, very funny take on the old broadcasts of the UFC, and it's hilarious, very funny. You're going to really enjoy it, and of course, they're always great. This interview was a blast. Went so fast. I mean, you can see why they are not only are they good friends, but just as good broadcasters and very funny people. They just keep it going. You're going to really like this one. We touch on everything from comedy to horror to some inspirational stuff. And their show is indeed very funny. I watched the first episode, and it's really great. I can't believe that there's even archival footage from 1993 of UFC. It's kind of amazing. Just seeing the beginning, knowing what it has become, this gigantic international sport, and to watch like the very beginnings of it is pretty hilarious. And the Sklars are just so good at serving it up because they are just so joke heavy. They make it, it's kind of like a Mystery Science Theater for the early days of UFC. You're going to really love it. It's called The Nosebleeds, and you're going to enjoy this conversation. I was making them bread this morning before the show, and I was going back because because of timing and different things, I now have a mountain of bread books and cookbooks in my house, which is great. I love I sometimes just read this stuff. I got this Italian cookbook from yesteryear, which just takes different parts of Italy, and this book is like from 1971, I think, and it's amazing how far it's all come. Like there are pages with no pictures, no description, just here are the ingredients, you do it. Just so great. It really makes me want to like go even further back into the older the recipes you can get, the better, and just kind of make what people were making at a different time. Really, really fascinating. So anyway, I went back to the very first bread book that I ever used, which of course is Tartine from Tartine Bakery. And that just, revolutionized all kind of bread baking and stuff. And everybody kind of caught the wave after that. And I went back to it just to make the original bread that I made. Man, so simple, so good. It's funny how you can get something so basic and then start getting fancy and going into different directions and realize, oh, kind of at its source, this was the thing that turned you on in the beginning, and you kind of forget about it in a way. And they got two very nice loaves of bread, I have to say. Happy birthday, Sklars. But nice going back and cracking that open. It was very, I almost didn't make it because it was one of those mornings where you have 15 things to do and you're baking at the same time. And it's 150 degrees in Los Angeles. It literally is... I'm surprised things aren't just bursting into flame. By the time this airs, we probably will have seen those reports. But it's so damn hot. I was in Arizona doing shows in Tempe over the weekend, and that was so hot that the people that were driving me around, they like dropped me off at Whole Foods, which was not even a quarter mile from my hotel. I was like, all right, thanks a lot. You don't have to wait. I'm going to grab some stuff. I'll walk it. They're like, no, you won't. That's not how we roll here in the desert. We're going to give you a proper ride and bring you back home where you can actually get in some air conditioning. They treat the heat like a storm, literally like a storm. It's like, no, this is, You don't go out in a blizzard. You don't go out in this heat. We're going to drive you to your safe destination. And I was like, I got to get back to LA where everything's normal. No, not normal. 112 here in Los Angeles. I keep wondering if we should be getting out of here. I mean, we're running out of water, aren't we? I don't know. I would love to be able to turn on my solar. I put on solar from Tesla, and I've got these 2 big Powerwall batteries that are waiting to be filled up with juice and be able to back up my electricity if and when the grid goes down. And getting approval from Los Angeles to just flip the switch is months-long aggravation. I've spent all this money to try and do the right thing and try and conserve and be smart and get off the grid somewhat. And man, they do not make it easy. They don't make it easy. I was like, maybe I'll just turn it on and sneak it. And you do that, and they cut the power to your house. So they're good at responding to that. But man, just really getting screwed. But it's super, super hot. And it was time for some day drinking. I just threw some beers into the bag and head over. I feel like the Scholars have another show. We should be raising a glass and celebrating, sharing some bread, and having a good time. And I hope you enjoy it. Enjoy the Sklar Brothers. Cheers.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good
Congratulations on your new show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The
Your
Nosebleeds.
continued success on the podcasties.
Thank you.
Being my friend.
Like,
That's the biggest thing.
That's the crown jewel.
And 2 loaves of bread right out of
at
the
this.
oven just
Look
for
at-
you.
Can we
warm.
crack them open?
You can open it if you like.
No, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to leave mine. It's nice and warm. It's almost as warm as it is outside in Los Angeles. I mean,
Did you bake these outside?
I bake them inside, but what's really cool is when you bake bread when it's this hot,
Yeah.
it like halves the time. It's
Really?
like everything, you know, it
Just
takes like
rises.
5 hours for it to like rise from like this up until this. And this one now it's so
2 hours is like,
yeah,
whoa,
exactly.
dude.
You like go into the other room and come back and it's like ready to go.
I mean, you explain bread the way people explain their CrossFit workouts. It's like most of it is only interesting to you. So we took this huge thing and then we turned it over and then we took a swing set.
I'm
like,
using less salt. And we're like, okay.
It's good.
Cool.
I mean, the first 5 hours is when you really got to look at it. So our workouts are only 20 minutes long, and then we all run around, then we sign it
We
on.
hang from a chain. Okay.
Yeah, I put the yeast in the thing and then I had it ferment and then
Good
it
to-
overnight
It's good to
and
know. That's all that stuff.
a combination of flours.
But I do appreciate this.
But
Thank
yeah,
you.
I was
It's
like
gorgeous.
It's really so. It is pretty funny too that I don't know if people even like it. Like if people are like, I go to podcasts. I'm never looking for a gift.
I love it.
I mean, it's nice that it shows up, but it's like I think I'm baking it partially because I know you guys are coming, and partially because I want to keep baking
Well,
bread
it's a
like
wonderful-
like a psychopath.
It's you got to keep the thing going.
So
right?
I had a conversation with a friend of mine about bread the other day about challah, which is a very specific kind of bread.
I
a
make
very
that too.
Chewy bread.
Yeah.
Braid it up, egg it.
And he said something very smart. He doesn't like a pre-sliced challah. It dries it out.
100%.
So when you get a loaf of bread and you can pull a hunk, it's
Yeah,
better.
that's
It's just better.
100%.
So we're going. I mean, this is how great this is. I want to eat it this weekend. We're going down to Mission Viejo to our cousins, to hang with our cousins this weekend. I'm going to bring this bread.
Ah, nice.
We're going to be champions. Like,
Perfect.
like you want
French
some
toast?
fresh toast?
Is this good French toast bread?
Yes.
Not really.
Okay.
It's more
Maybe.
like just regular.
I mean, challah is the king
avocado
of French toast. bread.
Avocado.
Yeah,
toast.
avocado toast, that kind of thing. And being it just came out, it's like tomorrow's really when it's going
Yeah.
to be like, okay, come and get me.
Great.
And that into Saturday, you'll be fine.
And you
You'll be
told us
perfect.
also don't like seal it up in a Ziploc bag. Like
No,
keep it in this.
in this bag or just a dish towel over it.
I love it.
And you guys will be fine. Your show is really funny.
Thank
Let
you.
me go right into it. Let's
get into it.
Cut the chatter before we,
All right,
because
let's
I'm
get into
excited about this show.
Thank you.
Because it's got, it's based on UFC,
Yeah.
but UFC history.
Yeah.
And I can't believe we're at a point where there's all of this classic footage of UFC.
We were saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
We were like so You think about 1993. Think about your headshot in 1993.
Okay, the
The
Tom
first one.
Papa
The
headshot in
first one.
'93. Ours
Ours
was
was
'94, so we're right in the same range.
So you think, what are we doing? Why are we hunched
Ours
over?
was like to the side, and one of us was like this, and the other was like this. We thought we were the Beastie Boys. If you were to see that, we could do an hour on just how stupid our outfits were.
What were you wearing?
I was
bowling
wearing like
shirts, which kind of are back around now again.
Uh-huh.
I
they are
don't know.
back around now, but the pants were
chain
wide.
wallet,
Chain
wallet.
chains were
Nice.
like, who are we in like
Caesar
Sublime?
cuts. Like, what if?
I hated how we like. If I look back at that, you hate it. But we're like, that's the point
Yeah.
that we're making with this show. That like we know where we are today. We like who
Right.
we are today. We just back then is cringeworthy.
I can still make fun of who we are today.
I can make
I think
fun
I
of
can
you.
100%.
crush
But
it.
now because now you're successful and self-aware.
It's fun.
right.
Like,
it's more fun.
to do it back then when you don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know
too
where
risky
you're
and
going to
painful.
So risky.
So that's kind of the way we pitched it to the UFC. So
Yeah.
basically, we had the show from like 2002 to 2000 that ran to 2010 on ESPN called Cheap Seats, which was like
Great show.
Mystery Science Theater with the old weird sporting events that they'd have in the library there. So dog shows, cheerleading, beard and
Spelling bees.
beard
Really
and
funny.
mustache championships. It was like a blast.
You
Yeah.
know what? It was an excuse to make 250 jokes in 20 minutes. Can we do that? And
That's
then
what you
bounce
guys are
into
so
sketches?
good at. I mean,
Thank you.
You told me what the concept of the show was. I looked it up. I was like, oh yeah, I'll get to see all this footage. And then within 2 minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that it's hosted by two joke machines.
Joke machine.
Joke. You
We're
know
like,
we
there
love.
can never be too many jokes.
You know us in our stand-up. We just love tag.
Yeah.
Just keep
There's
going.
no conversation. It's just jokes.
So we're like, that's what we need to do on this show, and
and it can be about anything. So you don't have to know MMA to watch this show. So like,
Well, yeah.
in the first episode, sitting behind the announcers is a guy in a purple open like button 5-down shirt.
shiny, like
Or
it had a sheen
wide
to it.
open shiny shirt. He's either a cokehead or a magician.
And our joke was so a magician.
That I always do that with. It doesn't matter how intense the fight is. I always drift to the crowd.
Pick a
Who's
guy.
in the
and
crowd?
and my friend will be like, "Did you see that hit?" I'm like,
No.
I
I was looking at the guy 5 rows up who was in 2 seats in a
Yeah.
giant red shirt, probably explaining where the best place was to get caramel corn. And like he's mansplaining to people who are not even there.
Yeah.
like that to us.
we're
and
obsessed.
I like it because of that too. Is that I don't know everything about UFC.
Right.
Like I don't, and to you kind of in a sneaky way get up to speed
so
on UFC
it's an
without like
entrance.
where are you gonna start? I'm just gonna start watching matches but this is like, oh, this is a slow, funny way that I could actually be able to get through a
No,
conversation with Joe Rogan.
First of all, I love that. Well, yeah, I love that you. So Rogan is amazing. I watch him like commentate
Yeah.
fights, and in order for him to commentate a fight, you have to be. I think of like a color commentator, like I don't know, Tony Romo, on the NFL or
played in the NFL.
Troy
Yeah.
Aikman. It's like
Right.
They played.
these
Yeah.
guys know
their life.
so much, and everything they say lends. You can't wait to hear their analysis of what is. I feel the same way with Joe. Whenever
Yeah.
he's calling a fight, I'm like, dude, he has such good insights into what's going on. What
And
this
he's
guy
not.
might
He's
think.
not trying to be funny. He's not
Right.
trying to push comedy into
So
those
he knows more
moments.
than we'll
Yeah.
ever know about this, and we're like, that's where we had to separate the show and say, okay, this is just a comedy, but there will be stuff for the diehard UFC fans that might go over comedy fans'
Yeah.
heads, but there's enough comedy in there that people will say like, oh yeah, this is maybe I could get into this, or
Yeah.
this is super interesting. And
So what was your path? Were you in on it early or did you come to it later?
so we came to it a little later. We were huge boxing fans,
Right.
And from the 80s, we grew up fans of those
all
great-
those
Hagler,
middleweights.
Hearns.
Hagler, Hearns,
Hearns.
Sugar Ray Leonard. That
God,
trio.
what a great
So
time
then
to
it's
be a-
Hagler, Leonard, and then Hearns, Leonard, and Hearns, Hagler, and great time.
They were the best.
I mean, Hagler Leonard, we went to our friend Howard Opinski's house. That was like one of the first, we got this on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
Remember, you all
yeah.
sat down and watched that fight? And it was like Hagler kind of beat him, but it was Sugar Ray, and he got the win in like a weird
Because he was
way.
like moving his feet late, and you're like, oh, he's got energy, and you're
Still
like,
dancing, and you're like, well, I guess he didn't touch him up that much, but it was. So we were huge fans of boxing. And then, of
Yeah.
course, obviously Mike Tyson was fascinating to watch. Even
and then we
though
went back and watched all the Ali fights in the 70s, like
Right.
after the fact, and got really into that stuff.
Yeah.
And then as it started to make its way into the 2000s, boxing just started to have problems making the fights you wanted.
Yeah,
Like
why
how much?
was that?
Yeah, because there's
two
no
different-
there's no governing body that's saying this fight has to happen right now. It's like Bob Arum and Don King have to sit together and say, well, my fighter wants this. Well, my fighter wants this, and they never agree, and then a
Right.
fight
It's a pissing contest between these two guys who aren't even fighting. So then they end up making the Pacquiao Mayweather fight 4 years after it was supposed to happen.
Right.
By the time
And then
it's
it's not
done, his
legit.
shoulders
and Pacquiao's shoulder is kind of messed up, and you're like, well, we didn't
and
get
he's
to
just singing all these
Yeah.
crappy songs. And he's running for like senator in like the
Yeah.
Philippines, and you're like, this is not.
This is not the fight, not when we wanted to see this fight.
Yeah.
So in that moment, UFC just started making all the fights you want to see every month.
Right.
And we were like, ooh, maybe this is like.
And they started to get stars, Conor McGregor.
Right.
They started to get Anderson Silva. All these guys who like, ooh, this match is a match I want to see, and it's coming up next week.
And the women's fights, Ronda
know.
Rousey rose to like prominence, and you say to yourself, man, I love that there's a sport out there
Yeah.
where guys will show up at the sport and watch
women be the headliners.
be the
Is
headliners
there a
of
chance
card.
that boxing comes back?
So
Or do
they
you
need
think-
big. So
Or are fighters going towards UFC now? Just like if you're young and hungry.
I think there's a little bit of that. I think there are still boxers.
So it's kind of like in terms of like, why aren't there a lot of African American young African American baseball players?
Right.
Well, because it's not as easy to just you can't get 18 people together to go play a game. It's just
Right.
a lot harder as opposed to saying I'm going to go.
Get 3-on-3. You need
Yeah.
6 people. 2-on-2
Yeah.
is 4 people.
Even if you're like playing flag football or whatever, you're just playing football, even tackle football or whatever,
Right,
you can
right.
get 5-on-5. That's an easier prospect than getting a bat and getting catching gear, and you're never going to play it on the level that you're playing. Whereas full speed in basketball, full speed in that, it's just easier to play those other sports. So
Yeah.
you're just not seeing it played as much. I think the same with these athletes. They're like, oh, I actually could make a name. I'm a good boxer, but if I learn
Yeah.
how to grapple, maybe I can make a name for myself. It's all
Right,
fascinating.
exactly. Yeah, that's the thing.
It's
like-
fascinating.
But I think if you had 2 big time, if there's a rivalry between people, I mean, you got to ask yourself, why are Jake Paul fights the biggest fights in the world right now?
Right.
He's not.
Why do you want to see Jake
Because
Paul?
he's hyping it up.
Right,
and
do
you
you
want
want
to see him get his ass kicked?
Right, right.
He's smart like that.
Right.
I mean, I don't think he's a particularly smart dude, but he's savvy as
No.
all get out.
Yeah, no, definitely smart.
So he's savvy because he's like, people want to see me get my ass kicked, and that's
Yeah.
going to help me make more money. And
Right.
so I'll play the villain even further.
right.
It's kind of cool.
It is cool. It was funny in the clip when the guys, he said, and they're talking about, it's so new, and they're talking about the attributes that each fighter brings.
Yeah.
And one guy, the announcers are clueless because the
course, they don't
sport
know what they're doing.
is brand new.
Right.
And he said something like, and he is really talented as a boxing person.
We're like-
and you're
we're
like,
like-
if only there was another word.
Yeah.
If only
mean
we
a
had a
boxer?
word.
You mean a
yeah.
boxer?
You mean a boxer? Yeah, you could just say that. It's like a self-defense person. You mean a martial artist? It's like, say it.
Say what it is. So again,
It's so good and it's so crazy because what year was that?
93, Denver in 1993. So that was
so
early.
old. It makes it look so old. It makes it
Jim
look
Brown, football player Jim Brown is the co-announcer, the color guy in the Joe Rogan seat.
Right.
Is Jim Brown.
Jim
And-
Brown.
And we're like, it's 1993. What was O.J. Simpson booked? I'm sorry.
He was in the process of being booked. I mean, it is the mid 90s, but
But there is that moment where you're like, they don't know what they're doing. They're just like, get this guy, and just have him talk.
like,
And Jim Brown's like,
figure it
I
out.
don't know.
No budget. That
Nope.
Jim Brown. I had a dream just last night that OJ was given a real gig. He was commentating. He was back in sports.
back in sports.
Commenting. I don't know if it was college football or what, but
Yeah.
he was reporting, and I was like,
And what were
wow,
people-
that's where we've
now come full circle where we're allowing him.
we're allowing that.
People
Like,
are like, well, whatever.
and I woke up, I was like,
What did he
that's
do?
Not that far fetched.
What did he do that was so bad?
He said he didn't do it.
Yeah.
He still says
He wrote a
didn't do
book
it.
about how he would do it if he did do it, but he said he didn't do it. I
so
mean,
crazy.
All that stuff is crazy. For us, again, it was like an excuse to make a super funny show. And
Yeah.
of course, we popped out. You saw Rob Corddry did a sketch in there. We included a lot of Comedy Store guys, which was really fun.
And it has now that you've been doing this long enough with your old show and now this
Yeah.
show, it's all like, I hate to say it, but I'm not going to say it. It's you.
Right.
It's your voice now in this other medium of beyond stand-up.
Yeah.
That like the set is like similar to your old set.
Yeah.
The vibe is similar. The jokes are, of course, on point.
Yeah.
It really, you guys have really carved out. Because I'll admit, as your friends, when you first dabbled in sports in the very beginning, I was like, I don't know them as sports. I know they're big Cardinal fans, but I never thought you guys in sports. I thought you in comedy. I thought you in smart jokes and that stuff. And then over time, it was like, oh, no, you guys have done now. And this is kind of just as I'm pontificating out loud. It's the only way you can pontificate, I guess.
Exactly. You can't do it.
You can't do it in your head. That's that's just thinking.
I was pontificating to myself.
Is that you carved out your thing?
Yeah.
It's that comedy and classic sport thing that is uniquely you. No one else does it.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of people doing it, and we always use it as an excuse to just launch into whatever else we're talking about.
Right.
Like, how do we take this thing that's happening right here and have it be an excuse?
I'll give you an example. Some guy said, "What are you going to do after Hoist Gracie wins the first UFC 1?" Announcer, I think it's Brian Kilmeade from Fox and Friends.
Okay.
I was going to ask that. That's him, right?
Crazy.
That's him.
He goes, "What are you going to do after this?" And he's like, "I'm going to Disneyland," as a joke.
He said, "I'm going to Disneyland."
And we're like, why wouldn't you say Disney World? Like, Disney World's so much better than Disneyland. There's Epcot Center, there's all this stuff. And then we're like,
I would go Knott's Berry Farm.
over Disneyland. There's alcohol at Knott's Berry Farm. There's no stupid ass characters. You can do whatever the fuck you want. So like that rant was born out of a moment on the thing, and then it launches into a stand-up sort of premise, or in our opinion, a take or an opinion that has nothing to do with sports.
Right.
But it is a very iconic sports moment, the "I'm going to Disney World" moment.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was from Brazil and he kind of screwed it up and he said Disneyland instead of Disney World,
And we caught him on it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what
and we're hammering him.
It's so fun to be that petty, to like catch him on in that moment.
And then it's like a million jokes about Disneyland, and now we're off into.
But again,
something.
you're like,
Right.
well, so what do we love about Larry David? We love about that show is that he won't let the little thing go.
Right.
He just will not let it go. Jeff's like, Susie's like, go up and see the baby when they had the baby. This is years ago. Go see the baby. Say goodbye to the baby. He's like, I don't want to see the baby. Like, just
Baby's
go up
not gonna remember.
Well, go up and see the baby. Get the fuck up there and see the baby. And he's like, well, I don't want to see the baby. He's right. You know what I mean? Like, they're right. Just go up and do it. Like, just let Hoist Gracie say he's going to Disneyland. We're like, we can't. We can't
won't.
do it.
We will not do it.
We got to get into him.
Yeah, I love those moments because you as a viewer, it clocks with you. It just something's off, something's weird, and then for you to go back and be like, yeah, we saw it too.
Right.
We're going in on it.
There's almost like a validation in what you just said. It's like, I know my eyes didn't deceive me, my ears didn't deceive me here. And if these guys are picking on it too, it kind of is like, hey, I didn't mishear that.
And then you don't stop. It's like one of
funny.
the things we do with each other. Like if you do something kind of funny and we know that, and then every time we see you, we bring it. I remember we were doing a Cheap Seats game where they put the apostrophe in the wrong place for
Cheap Seats episode.
Cheap Seats episode. Stanford, Cal.
1982, but it should have been the apostrophe before 82.
They put the apostrophe after the two. So we're like, Stanford, Cal, 82 feet. So every time we come back to that graphic comes up, we're like, 82 feet. We just keep calling it out. And that's like such a comics thing to do with other comics.
Do you ever do that? You're reading an article and like there's a misspelled word in the article. I'm like, I know it's online and I know you probably had to rush to get this thing out, but I was like, come on. I mean, it just gets me every time.
Every time in books when you're like, no.
In a book?
In a book.
This
This
is
is the
published-
third edition.
Why
Why am I the only guy that flagged this?
How do so many hoops? You missed an I. God damn it.
Have you ever done a book?
We have not. Have you? You've done a book.
I have. I just finished my third.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is one of them about baking bread?
No, they mention it,
I
but
know,
there's
but I
not
feel
like
like-
a. I know. You know, it's weird. I don't know. It's one of those things where like you tell your agent or whatever, like I should be on TV. I should be doing like a sketch show, and they're like, no one's buying sketch shows. And then like 5 years later, you've seen 12 sketch shows. But
Yeah, I love
feel
the-
that with my bread thing with my agent, my book agent. I'm like, I mean, people really know me for bread. He's like, food things aren't really selling.
You're like,
it's like
what?
everyone that comes on this podcast is either a comedian or someone with a book about food.
Yeah. Have you been to the cooking book section of like Barnes and Noble? Like,
Yeah,
they're just not
right.
making those anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, it was really impressive. I was in the bookstore the other day. That Stephen King has his own section.
Yeah.
Like I was in fiction. Where is he? I was in horror. Where is he? No, it's just the Stephen King aisle.
That's when you
Holy
know.
cow.
I mean,
That's like when they name an airport after you, you know you've done a lot of stuff.
right?
Stephen King has his own section.
His own section. I mean,
Is
so
there another
much
writer who you think would like maybe John Grisham? Maybe.
Maybe, but I feel like John
Kuntz.
Grisham. I don't know. I think they're
as
still
much.
right. They're still sub to the genre, so to speak.
Yeah, and not as much that had such an impact. Like, you know, you can
Yeah.
go through Stephen King of like,
Is it because his books were made into movies? Right? Like I'll never forget this. So we had a teacher that read to our class. This was so cool. I mean, we were probably in like 5th or 6th grade. We were young.
Yeah.
Read to our class the book The Mist, which is like, I mean, it turned into a movie, but like terrifying. A fog where monsters come out. Like as a kid, you're like, oh my God, if this shit can happen. It was just, but it was mesmerizing.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget our teacher reading it to us.
Of
And even though
course.
it was the afternoon, it was like so much of this book took place
Yeah.
during the day.
Yeah.
It was so scary.
He relates so well. I mean, he's so good at just, and I've seen him with Grisham actually in interviews or when they were together doing things, and they both kind of have a little bit of a what's the expression? A little craw in their neck. Is that an expression? That the literati kind of dismisses them.
Right.
Not, you know, they're not
they have
literature,
a
they're
chip
not-
on their shoulder,
Chip
so
on
to
their
speak.
shoulder.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, that
and they're both like super successful
Totally.
with people of all different age ranges, all different education, I mean, background, and because they just
Generations.
can tell a story.
So Misery. I mean, like that is just to me. All those stories are crazier than the most effed up monster you could figure out. Like, is the psychological stuff
Yeah.
of
A guy who's trapped in a woman's
trapped
house.
because she
His
broke
biggest
his
fan.
his biggest fan, and she broke his ankles. I mean, like
So freaky.
the breaking of the ankles and the inability to leave somewhere, I think is like people's biggest fear. Like, have you ever had that dream where you're like trying to cross the street and your legs don't work and you're like too slow and cars are coming at you? I mean, it's that feeling.
But in a
If you
whole
have-
movie.
in a whole
Oh my
movie.
God.
Amazing.
Or book. you know,
So
a book.
crazy. The first one I read of his was Cujo when I was like, it was a summer as a kid at the beach, and I read Cujo.
I mean,
and
a
was
far
like,
better book
what
than
the-
movie because
Yeah.
it's like hard to get the dog to seem
Yeah.
because like there's always like one shot in those types of movies where like he looks kind of cute.
I know.
He's being cute. Look at him laying
Maybe,
there.
if,
in the
maybe if I
dust.
parented that dog, I could get him to be nice.
Yeah, he had the disadvantage too of people making his movies not very well early on.
So
right?
he wasn't a filmmaker. So
Yeah.
it's like he's an author.
Also, like we've learned a lot since that point. Like
Yeah.
we've learned how to make those films. Like now, if you think now, our buddy Jonah Ray is off doing like he's starring in a horror movie. Like
Oh,
you
really?
can make a great low budget horror. I think
Yeah.
about. I mean, I was trying to talk to my daughter about. I was thinking about all the Jordan Peele horror movies, which I would describe as cultural horror movies.
Right,
In
yeah.
the same way that you're like, Misery is a story about fandom gone
Yeah.
to the extreme. The cultural horror movies that Jordan Peele makes are just fascinating. Not crazy expensive to make, and
getting more.
Getting-
expensive,
yeah,
but,
getting
but,
more,
But,
for
but
sure.
certainly the original one, Get Out. I mean,
Yeah.
you think like you could have done that.
I know when I was watching, I saw Nope over the weekend
Yeah.
for the first time, and I was like, there was a moment where I was like, oh, yeah, they're spending money.
They got a budget. They got a
Yeah.
Well,
and he's
proven
earned it. And he's earned
Yeah.
it. He's like you're like this
Yeah.
is the if you were to put it in a trilogy of movies, like this is
Yeah.
the third in the trilogy of style of movie that he's made.
Scariest movie of all time.
Scariest movie of all time for me is easily Silence of the Lambs. It is
Wow.
so
Easily.
terrifying, easily for me. So that is one that comes on and I will watch it again usually.
Yeah.
And just the helplessness of the woman down in the well in the guy's house
Yeah.
is so
Again, that's a trapped and you can't go anywhere.
her begging, the dog barking and her begging to come out, and her
It's,
getting
like, so
skinnier from
real.
not eating because he's trying to like get her
the lotion
skin.
in the basket.
Oh my God, it's so crazy. It's so crazy and weird. And they're like, we are not shying away from anything.
Yeah.
We're going to make you so uncomfortable as you're watching this. That's terrifying to me.
What about
Terrifying.
you?
There was an old Martin Sheen movie, The Believer. Do you remember that? It was about a cult. Oh my God, this is just a crazy movie where, I mean, do I want to give it away? There's something that happens in the beginning with spiders that is like, it's insane, and I've never forgotten it. It was
Such
like
a great thing.
Right.
Something happened in the beginning with spiders.
I don't want to give it away. And we all are just like, we don't know what it is, but we're like, this is awful.
It has to do with
Uncomfortable.
it has to do with like voodoo, like
Yeah.
causing these things to happen,
Yeah.
and it's just, I guess I believe in that stuff more. Not
Right.
more. It's like
That's
one
the thing.
click off reality where you're like, I don't know, if voodoo can cause this to happen, but
Yeah.
instead of this supernatural thing happening, I feel like we've gotten so much into.
But I will say this: I thought this last season of Stranger Things, the most recent season, of Stranger
Terrifying.
Things, was terrifying.
So scary.
super scary.
I
And
know.
Like
impending-
those guys went back to the genre in the 80s. The Duffer Brothers, I got to give them so much credit. They went back to the
As twins.
taking our market. No, those guys, they went back to the genre and really perfected it in all the ways.
Yeah.
If you could go back, because it's like if you
Right.
went back to Gremlins and you were like,
Yeah.
man, these guys look like stuffed
Right,
animals.
exactly.
Like we gotta fix this thing right here. And then they were like, well, what
Yeah.
if we made this 10 times scarier? Well, you got to make this a lot bigger, and then you gotta the jump point. Like if you listen to if you listen to the sound design on that show, it's remarkable.
Yeah,
and
the
I remember
clock.
Jay and I, oh my god,
clock, and also the fact that, and I think this is where horror movies get it the best, the fact that it could happen to people in broad daylight, that they could be sitting across from you, but then going into this horror world that there's nowhere to be safe. There's no door you can shut and be like in a closet being safe.
Yeah,
like
it's just-
music is the only way to get you out of it. Is crazy.
it was
So good.
It's a very
So good.
psychological thriller, but
It was so scary though. I remember the third one. I turned to my daughter. I'm like, "What are they doing?"
and she's like,
"It's so
it's fine,
scary."
it's fine.
Dad, it's fine.
Going back to the Gremlins thing.
Yeah.
My
Never scared
I was like, I turned that on and I was like, "You guys got to watch this. This was so great." Just thinking in my vague memory,
This was great.
This was great. I remember
Not great.
Gremlins being great, and it's so not great.
So
and my
not
daughter
great.
at one point, they're in the bar. They've all the gremlins are all the bad gremlins have lost their shit.
Yeah.
They're in the bar like causing
Drinking.
havoc,
Yeah.
and the bartender's having to like pour them really quick, like she can't just leave. And my daughter just turns to me and goes, and there's like 100 of these gremlins, probably 30 of these gremlins, all like. And my daughter goes, "Where'd they get the clothes?" They're all in like suits and leather jackets, all with gremlin size.
Yeah.
And she's like, "This is shit."
This is bullshit. So there was a movie, like a horror movie about like rats taking over, like, and there were rats in a subway, and it was like, I'm like, why are these people riding the subway? And there's all these rats, and they're like flying at people's necks and stuff. But like, if you've ever, doing sets in New York late at night, and you just be waiting for the subway, and you just see like basically armadillos
A
running.
rat as big as this loaf of bread.
Like running down the third rail, like not even afraid that like they're
No.
running on electricity, and you're just like, that's only making it stronger.
Right,
That
exactly.
movie scared the shit out of me. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, those rats could get people in New
What
York
about The
City.
Shining?
Shining was great again because of the psychological.
So I've gone down the rabbit hole of watching the videos of like Nicholson pumping himself up.
making of it?
Have you seen those videos
No.
online? Because like Shelley Duvall was like terrorized
Yeah.
by the
Kubrick.
director, by Kubrick, and a little bit by Nicholson, but they were like, he made her feel like she was a bad actress, and he made her feel like she was inadequate in an attempt, to make her feel the way they
unnerved, and she was unnerved.
She was unnerved. She became unhinged. And just in that scene where he's walking up to her on the steps and she's swinging the bat, or just the scene where like the chopping of the door happened like in the kitchen of the hotel, really. And they're like, we're going to shoot from under here on your side of the door to Nicholson. And like, you see him like pumping himself up and getting psyched up for this very iconic moment that we all remember. And you're like, wow, man, this is like, crazy filmmaking. there.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they do that anymore. That was
Yeah.
that was super scary.
Like when I was a kid, seeing that for the first time.
just the blood coming down the,
Blood
hallway,
and the girls,
twins,
the twins, and the big wheel. This the sounds.
the little kid's voice when he's doing the finger, and you're like,
Scared the hell out of me.
control this.
So there was a great exhibit. Did you ever do Bumbershoot? Phenomenal like comedy festival for those who don't know. I don't know if they still do
Yeah.
it, but like it was really popular around 2000, 2001 and all
Right.
that stuff. So phenomenal comedy.
Portland, right?
No, it was up in Seattle, right around the Space
Seattle.
Needle.
Right,
So
right.
the reason I tell the story is that when we were up there one time, we went to the EMP, the Experimental Music Project, which I believe is like a Paul Allen funded, Bill
Yes.
Gates funded music museum. Which to me, I think the only other museum that is as good from a music standpoint is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in
Right.
Cleveland, which I love, absolutely love. I'm sure you've done
Yeah.
Hilarities, and they let you go over there and do
Exactly.
the tour, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But they had an exhibit at the EMP when we were up for
yes.
Bumbershoot. That was it Bumbershoot, or we were just doing the club?
I think we're just doing the club.
That was sound in movies and kind of
Ooh.
like, and really in horror movies. So they did and they have like little booths with showing the movie and showing parts of why they're there. Okay, so like how the sound in a movie can
Yeah.
like
Are you talking about the sound from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
that was the,
Oh, really?
That was the one that got me, because they were like, they wanted there to be this tension all the time. So it's Texas, it's hot, it's the summer. They have the cicadas like, like going in the background, and you were just like, this is scary. They wanted the sound to be like another character. Like remember,
Right.
in The Sopranos, like Tony Soprano's breathing to me was always like another character. Like you just like waited for his breathing. I'm like, yeah, his breathing. Well, let's let his breathing weigh in on this. And it was just like the weird Tony Soprano
true.
breathing. It was like so much.
It's really true.
Same thing.
The one that messed me up, I had a fever as a kid, and my parents just put me on the couch
Yeah.
and left the TV on, and The Exorcist came on.
Oh my God.
And just possession and all of the...
That a little girl could have that kind of crazy demonic.
I did not sleep for a month. I literally was on my sister's floor for the rest. I mean, a fever, you're already messed up.
I mean,
and then they're saying this is real.
You're like, I'm sick. This is where I'm going.
Disaster.
like
Again,
any-
it wasn't a monster.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that was the same issue with the kid, which was
Right.
that something was possessing this child.
Yeah.
Something was moving his voice
Yeah.
and his finger, and it wasn't them. And so it wasn't this giant scary monster. It was
But also the beauty of like going crazy. Like, what does going crazy mean? Am I seeing things? Am I seeing this guy who's the old
Right.
hotel director standing this old British guy next to me? Is that real or is it not real?
Yeah.
Like, what is real and what isn't real?
Are
All of
we inside of Nicholson's mind? Are we
Yeah.
inside of his brain, or are we watching this?
So-
You ever hear how
very-
Stephen King wrote that?
No.
There's the story where he was on a trip and he stopped in that hotel.
Yeah.
And he was trying to quit smoking, I think, and was.
Yeah.
I'm probably butchering this. I just hear Stephen King going, no. But he got up. I think he had a nightmare or something, and got up and got a cigarette and was just staring out the window. And by the time the cigarette was done, he said he knew exactly what the story was.
Wow.
He just knew the whole thing. He just felt something creepy, and it just all.
So let's
came
talk
to
about
him.
that for a second, because inspiration and like, because
Yeah.
I'm curious.
And creative process.
Yeah, like how do you
Yeah.
come up with your bits? Obviously, you live your life, and you're like,
Do you have
what-
do you have a thought, and then like within 2-3 minutes it's a fully formed bit?
No, but I mean, once in a while you'll get something like, "Oh, that's going to be funny."
Yeah.
that'll be like in the I don't think ever fully formed, but maybe the heart of it is formed.
Yes, right.
You know,
And then you'll just build
and
out.
build around it. But I have to say, like I'll as you go through your day or whatever, and you get something funny, and I used to write on paper, now I put it in notes
Yeah.
on my phone. And once in a while, I'll go up at Comedy Cellar to the new joke night. You just give it like 5-10 minutes, and I'll
great.
just go through that list. It's
awesome.
Such a low hit rate. You know what I mean? Such
Yeah,
a
but
low.
Is the audience they're primed for it?
They're
too?
fine. They're good.
They're fine.
Yeah, they know what you're doing.
Right.
It's
So
totally
they're more
cool.
excited to see the process and how you're going
Yeah.
through things.
But it's interesting. I'm just kind of talking it out. Like I think earlier it was you're constantly like mining stuff like
Right.
from the outside, and I think recent years it kind of comes from inside a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little more internal.
Yeah, so I feel the same way. Like I was asking my son to do something the other day, simple. Like, can you take those empty cans of LaCroix and they're on your nightstand? Can you please take those into the kitchen?
Yeah.
Like and his response, because he's a teenager now,
Yeah.
and like he was like, oh, what? Seriously? And I'm like, he's talking to me like I'm the police chief asking him on the week of his retirement to go out on one more mission.
That's right.
And so like that, once I was having that moment, I was like thinking about like, can you just go
Yeah.
investigate one murder down the, I'm not asking you to do that. And so as
There's
I
an
started,
active shooter at a mall. Can you just go? I know you're retiring at 4. Just
can
go.
you just, it's one last thing. Can you
Somebody
get,
took hostages at a bank. I just need you to go down there and check
my
that.
son-
I know
What's
you're
the worst that could happen?
You're retiring in 15 minutes. It's fine.
I'm like, can you take these LaCroix to the kitchen? He's like, I'm getting too old for this shit. I'm like, what? Danny
old for
Glover.
this shit.
But no, but like that little moment,
Yeah.
it all like came, as he was doing it to me, like all of a sudden those like, it's almost like two puzzle pieces just like in front of my face fit together.
Yeah.
Because his reaction
Right.
reminded me of that thing. And all of a sudden I started to see a little bit of what the bit could be. Now, I don't know if we're ever going to do that bit or if it works or whatnot.
Yeah.
But like just, I wasn't looking for that to happen.
Yeah.
It was just the request mixed with the response mixed with what that
Yeah.
showed me in front of my face.
All right, but what about bigger things? What about like an idea for a script
Yeah.
or an idea for a show? Like those kind of, you know, you'll finish up a project and you're like, what are we doing? What are we doing next? Beyond stand up,
Yeah.
what's going to be the next thing?
Right.
How does that come up? Do you go about hammering it out and making it, or do you give yourself a beat and see if something drifts in?
So, I mean, we were like, what is important to us, and what do we feel like we can how do we feel we can bring something new to it in a way that hasn't been seen before? What can we do? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you should talk about the Meltzer of it all, this guy Simon Sinek, because it is fascinating.
Yeah, we've been talking about this a lot, partially just to keep saying it out loud. But our friend Brad Meltzer, who is like a John Grisham like novelist who we went to college with,
He's written like a number of New York Times best-selling novels that are actually kind of fun. It's like, imagine if, like, you know, John Grisham had a sense of humor. Like the
He's
Pelican
funny.
Grief
Yeah,
was
he's funny.
funny, or
Yeah.
like, you know,
the characters are funny. The
right.
situations are intense and page turners and whatnot, but the characters are funny, and he writes in a way that speaks specifically to our generation and a little
Right,
younger.
right.
And so,
What's his name again?
Brad Meltzer.
Brad Meltzer.
He's a great, phenomenal author. And we were on this hike recently for our friend's 50th birthday. He was like, get yourself to Switzerland and we're going to hike around Mount Blanc for like 9 days. And
Whoa.
and I was
it's like the first trip, as you know, because
Yeah.
you travel a lot for work and whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you're shooting a movie or a TV show or
Yeah.
you're going to do stand-up, it's
always
hard
work.
to then say to your family, hey, I'm going to go take a trip just for me. No, with us?
know.
No. With my wife? No. It's just
so
for me.
hard.
Right? That's like almost
Impossible.
asking. That's literally
Yeah.
asking, like, can I get into the Denver U.S. Treasury just to look around? They're
Right,
like, no,
yeah.
you can't fucking do
Yeah,
that.
you
No.
don't even ask.
Right.
No, so we did, but we felt like it was a once in a lifetime thing, and then out of it came this experience. So Meltzer was telling me about how he got connected with this guy before this guy did a very famous TED Talk about sort of finding your purpose. And I should go back and watch the TED Talk. I've seen little clips a little, and I've seen pieces of it, and really what he's
But we keep talking about it, so we're giving this guy tons
of
of
credit. He did sort of essentially a thing about how, you know, you want to find your sort of mission statement, your purpose. It's like a dartboard. On the outer circle is what you do. Inside of that is how you go about what you do. And in the core, in the center, is why you do what you do. And that sort of gets at what you're trying to say with all of your work.
What is your overarching theme
Right.
on all the things you're doing?
Right.
And so before this guy was going and talking to companies about that for them, you know,
Yeah.
our friend Brad, he wanted to write a book about this thing. And so our friend connected them, and Brad said, all right, in the morning, how about I'm taking Brad's story, but he's in the morning, how about you tell me what my thing is, and in the afternoon, I'll help you write a book proposal. And very wise, very cool.
Yeah.
So they went through it, and he asked him all these questions, and he dug into his life, and he got deep into like his work, first of all, his life, his relationships, and then his work.
Yeah.
And he came away after hours of questions saying, I think what your mission statement is that, or what, I don't know what he called it, but he said, I think it's that you think regular people have the power to save the world. And Brad was like, yes.
Oh
And
my
Randy
God.
and I are like, yes, that's the theme of every one of his work, of his books. That's what
Right.
he's putting out there in everything, in all of his children's books and his adult books. And it's really what he believes. And it's fascinating.
That's amazing.
And a great message and really cool. So all the while he's talking about this, we're hiking and it's like 9 hours of walking. And I'm thinking to myself, what is our mission? What are we saying with our work? What are we doing? And the more I was mulling it over and thinking about it, and only a trip like this can give you the space to have that kind of thought.
Yeah, of course.
Because you're not going to pick up the
I
kids.
know.
You're doing this or whatever logistics here, there, or the other.
So I'm like, I think I have it. And I went to Randy and I was like, I think this is what we're trying to say with our stuff. And it's simple, and it came to me very easily. It is this: we are better together than we are alone.
Yeah.
That's what
so
I
great.
believe. That's who we are. That's the point of our UFC show.
You know what's so
That is
funny?
The point of everything we do.
You know, it's so funny. One of the things that I took away from watching the UFC show, legit, from just watching it down, was I was literally said to myself out loud, not pontificating, that they really still love being with each other.
It's fun. We have fun together.
I mean, in this is just if it's going to come through, this is just a promo for the beginning of the show.
Right.
Just watching the two of you, I was like, God damn, they really genuinely.
So we've worked hard to figure out how to do that. And
I think
obviously-
also the fact that we have separate families and we have our own lives, and so when we come together to do comedy, it is special now. We don't take it for granted.
But you should. Well, you shouldn't, because it's. Sorry to interrupt you, but that is. I was just like, how could you not be tired of each other at this point? You've lived your whole life. I know there's a twin connection, but it's beyond that. Like, you guys have maybe because of the work you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, you like
It's a
the
joyful
work.
space, and
That's
you
it.
like that thing. But I just saw the glimmer in both of your eyes at this one moment. I think you fist bumped each other or did something. and I was
We
like,
were almost
they're
fist
just
bumping each other
like,
and not making a thing. Yes.
and I'm like,
yes,
they still
that's
get a
it.
kick out of each other.
Yes.
That's it. And
It's great.
And I think so, because that is a real moment.
Yeah.
People see that and they're like, well, these guys are better together. It's kind of what he was saying.
Yeah.
They are better together. And
Or people say,
And do you think that translates to people and how they should live their life?
totally.
I do, and I think it is something that we can teach the world. I do think it's something that people tell us when they watch the Nosebleeds and when they watch Cheap Seats. They're like, man, I felt like I was on the couch hanging out with you guys. And we're like, oh, you mean like we were together?
Right.
When we come and see you backstage and watch a set of yours, our favorite moment isn't just watching you do it. It's when you come off and we're like, can I pitch you one tag for your thing?
Right.
And we riff together and we hang out.
Yeah.
The hang at a comedy club to us is as valuable as the moments being on stage. Why? Because we are together.
Yeah, I'll never forget. You were
Yeah.
like, "Come do this show." I forgot, it was during the pandemic, and there was like a giant
Yeah.
sneeze guard in front of us, but a band behind us
Found
and
a
everything.
studio in the middle of Burbank.
Oh my God, it was so much fun, and it was at a time when people were the most nervous about
So
performing.
crazy.
But like
We rode that high of just being around you
it
and other
was
comics
so
for
fun.
days.
You
I
made
know.
that experience so fun, and it wasn't just because we had stage time. It was because we all got to hang out a little bit.
And to see each other.
See
That
each
was
other
like-
do stand up, to see each
That
other
was
work.
half the
that
joy
was,
of it.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Which I love.
That was like, I mean, that came out of just, we just have to do something.
That was
Like,
great.
I'm missing this thing.
And you took care of us, and you paid us twice. This is what
and you
I
got a
love.
microphone. Didn't you get a
We
microphone?
got a microphone out of it, but what I loved about you is that, we jokingly say, people ask us what's the best part about being a comedy team, and we say it's that we get to split the money, which is terrible. It's awful. No,
Yeah, you should be paid twice.
right.
You're two
But
comedians.
you paid us twice. I'll never forget that. I know it's like a small thing. It was like an extra
Yeah.
$100, but it was.
It's funny.
It was the gesture that was so cool. It was you saying like, I know you guys have to do this together, but I look at you as individually.
Yeah, I wouldn't
to
even.
come.
It wasn't. Please, it wasn't even a thought. It was just like, of
beautiful.
course. But the
nice.
what was really special about that night was it was at the Woodshed.
Yeah.
Mhm. And it was for the first time I realized what I was missing from that whole pandemic scary time was seeing comedians translate this and digest it and spit it back out.
Oh, yes.
And it was like, oh, he was dealing with fear this way. It was
That's
like
right.
that we take for granted that we get to see these smart, funny perspectives all the time in our lives.
Processing what we're all going through. all the
Exactly.
time.
And that was absent
Yes.
That was
It's like
absent.
like when, you never want something bad to happen to anyone.
Yeah.
But if you ever want to like hear what it's like to go through like cancer or something like that,
Right.
you go listen to Tig Notaro talk about it.
Yeah.
Like she's got the best perspective about everything. She's so funny. All the health stuff that she went through,
Yeah.
to hear her talk about it, it is almost like it makes you feel like, okay, I can go through this. It's
Yeah,
like
you're not
her-
alone.
Just her saying it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. It's
Yeah.
it might
gonna
not be okay.
It's probably not going to be okay. It's not okay. I mean, like, for her to go to
she's
that
so
place
good.
is hilarious.
And
So
it's,
good.
It's how we process these big events and what we have. And
Yeah.
you gave that gift to us, and then it fit into our thing, which is that we are better together than we are
Yeah.
on our own. We need each other.
Yeah.
And if we
No, it's
can
great.
put that out there, like overtly or subtly or whatever, I
Yeah.
think that's valuable. That
All
has
right, so
value.
let me. You were saying it's all perfect and beautiful. I really and it's like second nature. Like it really is. That is your thing. It's nice to hear it actually summed up, and then to talk just for a minute about how small-minded we can also be. I paid you twice apparently on that show.
Yeah.
and
You want that money back now.
How much
And
do
I'm
we
big big fans of yours. But when I was making these breads this morning, I was like,
Do I have to make two?
do I have to make two?
But you did make two.
You did make two.
I
and it's
did.
still
You did
warm.
make
I
two,
did.
and it's still warm. And I mean it again, but that shows your
It's so
attention
funny.
to. So what I would say is, if you were to sort of do this little exercise
Yeah.
about yourself, your attention to that detail is everything. You're
Right.
never sloppy in anything you do. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like I was watching clips of the special. I don't know if it was the last special with the beautiful 1970s set.
Yeah, a couple
I mean,
ago. Yeah.
It was. So that's like running through my TikTok, like great little clips
Oh,
of
yeah.
that.
Or also, I was thinking a lot about the stuff you were doing on the NPR show that we did. Those
Yeah, the live from
pieces.
here.
Live from
Yeah,
here.
that was so much fun.
Those pieces were great, but there's never anything sloppy.
Yeah.
in
Or
anything.
wasted.
So when you dress, a lot of times you are wearing a suit and you look super. Like everything you do,
Yeah.
from the writing to the joke writing to the premises to
the
the way you
performance.
present
Yeah.
yourself to your performance to the way you do this show. Look at this set.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all like nothing is sloppy.
Right.
And when you,
I would say that one of my things, and this might not be your thing, is that for you, the details matter.
Yeah, not as my
Not mission,
core
but-
missions. Yeah,
but I think
but
that's-
that does matter.
that's
Yeah, that is
part of
important. Yeah,
what you do.
Yeah,
I don't know, it's a good exercise
I think
to
you
think
should
about.
go to work at these things for sure. I think so.
Yep.
For sure. Well, I'm glad I made two breads. I'm glad I paid you twice.
Thank you.
The name of the show is
The Nosebleeds. You can watch the first episode for free on UFC's YouTube page, or just go to our Instagram at Sklar Brothers. We have the link in our bio. Please watch that. We want as many people as we can to watch that so that they'll be like, let's make a bunch more.
If you love it, you can get a subscription to Fight Pass and watch the other 5 great guest stars. Andy
Yeah,
Richter.
Andy
did it.
Richter.
Can you guys get to go to fights?
Yeah, we did go to some fights at the Apex, and it was
Fascinating and awesome.
amazing
So great.
and cool. And again, hopefully as we go forward, if
Yeah.
they allow us to make more, we know we'll just get more kind of involved in it. And again, we love every sport. If you were like, hey,
Yeah.
you guys got to go cover this ultimate frisbee thing, or like go to this thing right here, we'd be like, there's a
Adult kickball league?
Sure.
Yes,
There's
we
a
will.
certain level of
fun.
showmanship that we need to get in there
Yeah.
and figure out and make fun of.
Well, thank you for coming. This was really great. Always great spending time with you
Cheers,
all.
buddy.
Thanks for day
Thank
drinking
you.
with me.
Cheers. Appreciate it.
All right.
I'm not going to do
We got it, Aaron. There you go, kids. That's the big show. Check out The Nosebleeds. It's a very funny show on YouTube and UFC's Fight Pass. Very funny. Go to any social media with the Sklars and you will find the right links and all this stuff. It's a very funny show. I can't wait to watch more. It's really evergreen stuff, and just to see where the beginning of UFC started off is just hilarious. And of course, it's packed with jokes, as are the Sklars as human beings. Go to tompapa.com, look up all of my tour dates. I'm rolling all over the country, and this was a fun one. We should do more day drinking. Don't you think, Aaron?